Hello to my readers, and now listeners. Welcome to my new blog format where I post the same text and web hyperlinks as always, but now there will be an audio podcast version on my YouTube channel in the new podcast list. My electronic avatar, hey that's me, which I specifically created to look like me, will read the podcast and a link to it will precede the corresponding post. My channel also has various videos related to ALS and a few personal videos from my past. I will also have a lower bitrate sound file available as a download link on each blog post. My hope is that this format will make my blog easier for people to enjoy. Everyone now can listen to my posts and then later check out the text version and follow the embedded links to learn more. This post is to announce my latest interview with a new lifestyle magazine called Folks. It's a publication by PillPack, a full-service pharmacy which separates medication into individual doses. This is pretty handy for people who regularly take medication and may have difficulty with prescription adherence, and institutions like nursing homes and hospitals. The publication was launched about 9 months ago and features people living with various medical conditions, refusing to be defined by that condition. I guess that would include me. I had the good fortune to be contacted by Josh Andrew. He is one of the writers for Folks and he had heard my recent interview by Reply All, a podcast by Gimlet Media. Our interview was conducted over email. Unlike the podcast, I did not need to also send sound files. The link to the Folks article is in the text version of this blog post. Josh was kind enough to assist me with this podcast by answering a few questions about Folks and how they found me, and how the interview was done. The questions I asked were: 1. Please describe what Folks magazine is and what it's all about. 2. Please describe how you found me and why my story was interesting to Folks magazine. 3. What was the interview by email like? 4. Have you ever done this before? Let's listen to his answer.
Folks is an online magazine dedicated to telling the stories of remarkable people who refuse to be defined by their health issues. By sharing the experiences of these people, we hope to change the idea about even what it means to be normal. So Folks is sponsored and published by PillPack, a full-service pharmacy that pre-sorts medication by dose. Part of the mission at PillPack is to create healthcare experiences that empower people, and Folks is one of our efforts to redefine how people think about health. So, Eric, we found your story through Reply All's piece about you, Cyborg is as Cyborg does. Many of the stories that we do here at Folks revolves around the idea that living with a chronic condition can be a basic part of living a human life. That being said, a person living with a condition oftentimes has to reconcile themselves with the fact that the life that they knew before their diagnosis and the life that they know now are drastically different. And there's opportunity for a kind of identity crisis as people realize that their identity has been fragmented and now they're left to reassemble the pieces. And some really struggle to put themselves back together. So when I heard your story, I was moved to simply ask myself, Josh, who would you be in the absence of your voice, in the absence of your ability to move your hands and walk and communicate in the ways that you know? And I realized that as I understood it, myself, my person, my identity would be gone. I wouldn't have anything left. And so as I heard you articulate a specific idea about what your purpose on the earth is and the things that motivate you, only through the movement of your eyes, I knew that I simply had to have a conversation with you. So the process of interviewing you was interesting. It was done exclusively by email. And I remember sending my first note to you, and I was sort of nervous. And I assumed that if you did ever respond, it would take a few weeks because this process of writing with your eyes using the eye gaze software must take a long time. But instead, you responded very quickly, perhaps within just a day. And so I assembled a list of questions and sent them off to you, again, thinking, okay, so this is going to require more time. Maybe I'll get this back in a couple of weeks. But instead, within a few days, I received answers that were not brief. They were paragraphs in length. And I was stunned. I thought, this literally is not possible, that only through the movement of his eyes was he able to write all of this in apparently an incredibly short amount of time. Also, I'm sure you have other things that you're doing. And so how do you even manage to get all of this done? These are just questions that are sort of racing through my mind. I had never done an interview like this. And so I think my naivete was sort of on full display here. I remember reading your answers, though, and the gravity of what you've dedicated your life to really began to sink in. One of the most poignant things that you said was that every person that dies with ALS, you feel in some way personally responsible for. And that idea of being responsible, not simply for yourself, but for every single other person in the world that is afflicted by this condition, is a way of approaching the human experience that is so unique. So many of us seem to simply turn to ourselves and mind our own business, per se. And yet your identity is built upon effectively serving and giving yourself to others. People with chronic conditions out of anyone would seem to be most deserving of spending all their time sort of reflecting on themselves, but you've turned your gaze outward. And your story of crafting an identity through researching this condition towards the end of saving human lives is so powerful. And I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to speak with you.
Thanks for listening and/or viewing. Please leave a comment on this blog post and let me know what you think of the new format.
I got the locked in blues. I got the locked in blues. I got the locked in blues. I got the